Ooh. Can we kill the house sound? Hello, everyone. Hello. I hope you had a nice break. Are you comfortable? Are you ready for a really awesome talk? Let's try that again. Oh, that's good. That's great. So our next speaker is Adam Christian. So he's actually from San Francisco, but he grew up here. So he's a Cascadian at heart, if you will. All right, so come on up, Adam. He's going to talk about language. It's something that we all care about. This is a language-specific conference, and we're all talking a lot, right, in English. But there's other languages, and there's a lot of other conferences in other countries, and this is an international community. We have people all over the world doing this, and we share code, and we share ideas. And so he's going to talk about his sort of personal journey learning foreign languages and how that relates to code and technology.
All right, am I on? You got me? All right. Well, hello, everyone. Thanks so much for, I've got a little reverb going on, I think. Okay. Is this better? No? Still no? I can't walk away from the mic, so I'll just keep talking, I suppose. It's awesome to see everybody here. I grew up here, like I said, and I love the Northwest and pretty much everything about it, but I ran off to San Francisco so that I could have a Mac laptop, I guess. So about 2 years ago, I started this journey where I decided that I should speak another language, and this talk is a little bit about the journey that got me from there to where I am now. And I've had a lot of really interesting realizations along the way between technology and linguistics and all these cool things that programmers are interested in. So starting off, the GitHub URL to the project is on the screen here. This talk's called Building Immersion, but at the bottom of the screen is a link to where I put the slides online if you want to try to follow along or whatever. There's actually some QR codes on here, so I've pre-tweeted for you, just in case you're too lazy to actually type it on your phone or whatever. You can just copy it into Twitter, and it'll be awesome. So go ahead and do that. A little bit about me. I work at a company called Sauce Labs in San Francisco, and so sort of since I left the Northwest, I've been doing automated testing stuff, testing tools with Mozilla and Flex and all of these interesting kind of weird things. So I'm a testing geek at heart, but I sort of veered off for the last couple of years. So I realized that this is a JavaScript conference, and a lot of the talks are like, how do I do MVC better, or what is this really cool way for me to do my routes, or whatever. This talk is not about that. A lot of the conferences I go to, some of the things that I find the most interesting are the ones that kind of veer off from the main track and have more things to do with real life. Was anybody here at LXJS in Lisbon? One. Okay, so one person in the room will have a little bit of overlap. The rest of you, this will be new, so that's awesome. So a couple years ago, I went to JSEU in Berlin, and I went there and I realized that everyone was speaking German there, and I was like, whoa, this is crazy. Actually, not everybody. A lot of them speak English, but a lot of people were speaking German, and I had this strange realization that up until that moment, I had basically just assumed that the entire world spoke English and didn't care about anything else, basically. Kind of like the way I feel about JavaScript, really. And so at that moment, I realized, whoa, there's this other thing here that I should look into. So I came back from that and decided, this is an interesting new challenge. I'm a programmer. I like language stuff. I like pattern matching stuff. Maybe I can jam this into my brain. If 86 million people can speak German, then why the hell can't I? So I spent the last 2 years really geeking out on languages, which is really nice because it was kind of a segue from the place that I was staying, which was developer tools and testing. The trouble is recently, it's hard to do a really compelling talk at a JavaScript conference unless you have robots or beer or both. So I apologize for not having those, but I'm trying to make up for it in other ways. I will be happy to drink beer with you later, of course. So there's this concept of linguality, which is basically the quality of being lingual. And why should you care about languages? Well, I didn't really have any good reasons other than I want to prove something to myself. But it turns out if you Google it, there are actually some pretty good reasons. The first one is that it's healthy for your brain, for staving off Alzheimer's and dementia. It makes you smarter, according to the New York Times. It helps you understand your own language, something that you take for granted. It's a fun hobby, and there's a lot of interesting social dynamics. If you're learning a new language and you find someone that it's their mother tongue and you try to practice with them, you learn really quickly exactly when to stop annoying them, or they'll never want to work with you again. And the most important thing, and this one I found pretty interesting, according to 270 unnamed dating services, being bilingual makes you the hotness, which is pretty important. And so all of you out there who are bilingual look around, they're like, yeah. Oh yeah, so you know what I'm talking about. So the sentence that I thought was the most interesting is that bilingual is one way to keep your brain active. It's part of the cognitive reserve approach to brain fitness. And sort of, it's like going to the gym for your brain, which we all pretend like we do, right? So the breakdown, languages are composed of a lot of things. Reading, writing, speaking, and comprehension. I don't want to go get a master's degree in languages. I want to be able to go places and use them. I want to be able to read newspaper articles in them. There's a lot of interesting things on the internet that aren't always in English. So I wanted sort of a practical use of a language. And you know, language comprehension is really basically about repetition. And computers turn out to be really good at repetition in a way that humans have a tough time with. So I got home and I was like, okay, what am I going to do? So I tried all of these different methods. Tried Rosetta Stone. Has anybody tried that? Are you fluent? Nope. How many of you are fluent now because you did Rosetta Stone? Yeah, I wasn't either. So I did that for a year, and then I went back to Germany, I got into a cab, and I started talking to him, and I realized 30 seconds later that I had no idea what he was saying. And I just spent an entire year pounding my head against the computer screen, basically every night for hours until I fell asleep, which is like, oh my God, it's tedious, isn't it? It doesn't have to be that way. So I did get some things out of Rosetta Stone, but not what I wanted. So I decided, well, I build web apps. I've written lots of browser extensions. I would love to write some mobile apps. So those are things that I'm sitting in front of all day, all the time. How can I use that technology to try to help teach myself a language? So one of the realizations I had was that the biggest growing periods in my vocabulary and sort of understanding and comprehension was when I was interfacing with media of people who were mother tongue from this language, and listening to the flow of native speakers was like somehow infiltrating my brain without me having to do any work. It gets kind of boring if you don't understand something for half an hour, but the things that you do get, you actually don't realize how much of that is soaking in. So I was like, okay, web app, media, we have this. In the browser I can watch a video, right? But I also have the JavaScripts, so I can find different ways to interact with that. So I decided that I would want a quick way to flag something in a movie every time I didn't get what the word was. This way I can revisit this later and go back and try to learn this vocabulary at a later date. And it's really important as humans for us to feel like we're making progress. So storing this data somewhere so that I can look at it over time is a pretty useful way to see if I'm making progress. But I also want to collaborate because I get the feeling that I'm not the only person in the world that's interested in learning other languages. Every time I go out to a bar and bring up the topic, there's many people that want to talk about it. They've researched it, they've studied it, they went to another country and went, dang, I wish I spoke Spanish because this beer would cost half as much. So the collaboration is interesting to me. Memory is a really funny thing. It turns out that it's not quite the way it works in a computer. There's this guy, Herman Ebbinghaus, who decided this top line here. He was going to memorize this thing and do insane amounts of studies saying how long it took him to forget these words, and then to relearn them, and then to forget them again. So he did this, and then 2 years later, he tried the same thing, and he collected all this really interesting data and published this, this paper called Memory. And since then, there's been a bunch of different scientists who have talked about what a shame it is that the world didn't pay more attention to this. So then this guy, Peter Wozniak, I believe, from Poland, started working on the same subject, and he came up with what is called algorithm SM11 for this website called SuperMemo, which is sort of basically used to help you remember things better. He's on the 11th iteration. I thought maybe I should get in touch with this guy until I went to his website, and at the bottom of the first page is an apology saying, I will never respond to you. Just don't even try. It's not going to happen. I don't even talk to people in the same town that I live in. So I started doing some Googling, and I found there was a couple companies out there or projects out there that were trying to implement this algorithm as part of their product. One of them is called Popling, which I'll show you a quick demo of. But the basic idea is that there's ideal times for you to see a word again or a concept again so that you remember it. And so that's something pretty interesting, and I want a JavaScript or Node library so that I can use this. I don't have it yet. You have to realize that I have a day job too, so this is like conference-driven development partially. And so every night before a conference, I come back from the party the night before, and I'm like, oh my god, I have to build 10 features tonight. And I usually do. I'm a little bit tired right now, but I have some pretty good demos. So in this project, which is called Immersion, for lack of creativity, I used all of the technology. If it has to do with JavaScript, basically, I just tried to use it. Because this was a great excuse for me to try to experiment with a lot of new interesting technologies that are in the JavaScript space. I also used all of the services when I couldn't get FFmpeg to even compile. I realized this is insane, and I won't have any time to get anything done before the conference, so I started working a little bit with the transloaded APIs, which turned out to be a really good idea. Basically, I've offloaded all of the computing that this thing is going to need to do to cloud services. But the whole stack is JavaScript. That's how I can justify being here. So here's the website, and the front page says convincing things like you should really do this. Whoops. I'll just put these in here. So hack your brain with foreign language. You're sitting in your computer all day anyways. You might as well contribute to something. So pretty simply, if you have a piece of media that is in a different language that you think is interesting, that you want to use to train yourself or share with other people, you upload it. There's also a stick in a YouTube URL. Don't try to do this right now. It's not really ready for public consumption. But after a couple more conferences, it probably will be. So then basically you have the ability to filter this based on the language and the level of difficulty involved. And when you uploaded that, I offloaded that and translated it into WebM so that it can be played in the different browsers. So here's a clip that I had of a guy in the woods speaking German. It's like a small clip out of a German TV show. And as I watch this, when I hear a word that I don't understand, I hit the W key. It's a pretty simple user interface. So you can see down here at the bottom, it says words. And each time that you hit W, I take the movie and I parse out and I try to figure out in the wave where the word was closest to where you hit W going backwards. And then I try to parse that out so that you have a little profile for this little piece of information that you want to learn. Okay, so these are parsing in real time using WebSockets. It lets the web page know when it's done, and you can go ahead and just listen to that little clip. And you can sit there, and this is one thing that I did with my TV is pause, go back, play it again, go back, play it again. And so you can do it in one place, and then if you want some more context, there's the jump to so that you can jump back to where that was in the video. So then, ideally, Let me go back here. God damn it. Ideally, there's a project called CMU Sphinx, which is part of Carnegie Mellon's language learning projects. And the goal there is to allow you to build the different diphones for parsing actual language. It turns out to be really, really hard to set up. It's been done, but I've been trying to find people online to help me, and it's a long process. So ideally what will happen is this will automatically translate this soundbite into language. But for now, the next best thing, I'm leaving this. For now, the next best thing is that you type in what you think you heard, and then you hit search. So what's happening then is instead of using the Google API, which they can limit, I'm launching a browser with WebDriver, and I'm actually doing this translation on the Google Translate website. So you can see this happening running in a virtual browser, pretending to be real, and it gives you a suggestion for what you were trying to say, which I thought was pretty useful. So now this goes into a vocabulary list that you can refer to later. So what I think is kind of more exciting about this is that it's an open source project. It's pretty easy to set up. The concepts are pretty simple. There's a lot of cool things that can be done with it that haven't been done yet. And if you want to set up a node, it uses CouchDB on the back end, so you can have your own instance of this, and you can be uploading stuff. And if you want to, you can replicate it back up to the master node, and then people can replicate it down and share it with each other. So since these videos are stored on Amazon S3 in a public way, anybody can actually pull that in and watch that video in real time. So it has your contributions. I would like to have a browser extension so that this will ping me every once in a while and play the audio clip and make me type it in so that I remember. And I would also like it to happen on my mobile device so that something comes up and says, hey, tell me what the meaning of this word is. A is for this, B is for that, possibly in a text message, maybe in an app that you install. Because when I'm walking to work, it'd be nice to be quizzed because I'm not doing anything really else anyways. So the idea would be that you would see the other couch nodes that you can interact with and what kinds of content they have from which language, because it could definitely become an overload. So conceptually, there's this project called Popling, which does something similar. And so the idea would be that you type in what you think the foreign word is for medical, which I didn't know. I should have probably. But I did know this one, and it gives you some positive feedback. So if you want to use this little library I wrote, it basically just uses Sauce Labs for WebDriver in the cloud. And from the command line, you can npm install it, and you can pass it a string of text, and it will give you back the Google Translate results. This way, they can never turn you off. Well, they can probably block your IPs. Well, they can block our whole cloud of IPs, I suppose, but it's lower on their list. So, yeah, so you see you get the results there saying what Google thinks it was and what language, which is pretty useful. The other thing is Sphinx has a lot of possibilities here. And this is the out-of-the-box transcriber. Before you have defined all of the sounds that make up a language, this basically can show you the sort of flow of language that's happening in a sound clip. And so you can imagine if all of the work happens, that these would actually turn into real words that have been translated, which is a pretty exciting idea. So all of this is on GitHub, and people can go play with it. I plan to do a bunch more work and get it really much more polished before I really encourage the world to contribute. Which brings me to the next piece of the talk, which is open source process. So in the open source community, if you trust people, you give them the ability to merge stuff into your open source project, which is cool. But then it takes your time, which I don't have a whole lot of, to go read through, and you already decided you trust this person. Why can't they push it live? Well, because you don't want to give them all this creds and deal with SSH keys and stuff like that. Well, there's another way to do this. I set up a couple of days ago this thing called Strider, which is a pretty cool CI system. It's like Travis, but it has one additional thing, which is just a button that says deploy when it passed. And I'm using Mocha with WD.js to write my functional tests. I'm driving it with Sauce. You could do it with anything. And then deploy to either Heroku or Node.js. So the workflow is, I just want to git push or merge. Then I want my build to happen. I want my tests to run. And then I want the thing to be deployed live. So ideally, anyone who's like a developer that I believe knows what they're doing, who's really contributing to this project, can git push or merge, and boom, the new thing is live that people are using. I'm like, I don't want to have to deal with anything more than that. So, all right, so here's a quick demo of this workflow. I go into this, it's just a test. It looks like I need some promises to deal with this callback hill that I've created for myself. And I'm going to just commit a quick change. Boom. OK, so this is the Strider UI. It's totally open source. And you can see in the Heroku config, there's this checkbox. I put in what stage I want to deploy to in Heroku, and there's a checkbox that says deploy on green, which I think is pretty sweet. There's a second section, which you click all of the browsers that you care about knowing aren't broken. The reason that IE9 is not clicked is because it's totally broken, and I didn't have time to fix it before this demo. Probably get to that next. So this automatically picks up that you get pushed. It runs your whole build. And here's the test actually running in a real VM. And it runs all in parallel, so it's like really super quick. And then it automatically deploys to Heroku, which is like awesome. Like, this is the easiest thing I can think of. So it says, hey, it deployed successfully. You're ready to rock and roll. There's your thing. So like, I don't ever want to do development any other way again. So I'm just going to talk real quick about Sauce Labs, which is where I work. We have tons of browsers and platforms and simulated mobile devices at the moment. There's free accounts. You can use it. You can play with it. We have a big cloud with lots of concurrency. And we like to hang out at lots of events like this because it's awesome and we get to talk to you guys. And I've been going to JS Conf for the last probably, well, since the year after they started. So it's really important. Also, one last thing is we pushed out a desktop app for manual testing and all these platforms to the App Store. So you can download that if you're on a Mac. If that would be useful to you, I use it for debugging all the time. If you're on a non-Mac, please talk to me because I'm looking for some feedback so that I can go say, let's do a Windows version of this, because we can totally make that happen. That is the URL there. I heard that the coffee was good. I guess we sponsored the coffee. I don't drink coffee, but I'm glad that you all enjoyed it. It sounds awesome. So also, here are all the links to all the things, basically. So if you want to find any of the stuff that I talked about in here, you should be able to get to it directly. Normally, I have a beard, but I'm doing Movember. If you haven't heard about that, it's to raise money for cancer. And this is what I want to look like at the end. That's like yesterday or 2 days ago. This is the goal. A bunch of people at Sauce Labs are doing this with me and a bunch of friends. And I think it's pretty awesome. And thanks so much for hearing my talk. And I look forward to talking to you.